Catherine Draeger Pederson has more degrees and honors than I have dollars in the bank. But you talk to her, she's just a regular person, a beautiful lady, as you'll find out. And most important, she has a faith story that is not without some suffering and has brought her to the spot where she loves and impacts so very many. Hi again, everybody. Welcome to the Homer and Pip program. We call it My Faith with Homer and Pip. He's Steve, the Homer True. Our marvelous producer is Brent Young. He makes it all possible. I'm Tommy Pippins, and Homer, tee off, buddy. Let's get going with Catherine Draeger Pederson.
I don't want to lean in any direction. I want Catherine to start. This is My Faith. We have no idea. I know it's a great story because you set it up, but I don't know where she's going to start. Catherine, where do you choose to start with My Faith?
Gosh, that's a really good question as to where to start. You know, we have several journeys in life. We have the moment that I came to faith, which was in high school. I had attended church for many, many, many years, but a dear friend of mine who says that she was in her dark period of life. So if that says that's how she met me, was in her dark period of life, invited me to youth group at her house. And there was just something different there than I had experienced even in my years of going to church, and something that just drew me in and was a part of it, really never left after that moment, and experienced it in high school and in college and beyond. But thought for many, many years, like life went well. Life went really well. Got married right after college, experienced some good times in profession. Both, I was a public school teacher for a while. I then realized what I really enjoyed doing in college was all the student organizations. And so switched my career into the nonprofit world. But that faith just continued. It just was the backbone. It was integrated into everything that he did. It was just interwoven in there. And the more I knew, the more I got excited, the more I wanted to know. But it just kept going up and up and up. And it wasn't until multiple years into my adulthood, a decade into my adulthood, that things that I expected, they just started to crash down. And things where my faith was really tested. Up until that point, it just came easy. And so while yes, faith started in high school and beyond, it's been a roller coaster.
I want to go back to the youth group because I know people that do that, and they say this happens all the time. When you say it was different, can you explain that in any way?
Yeah, well, I moved a lot growing up. My dad was in manufacturing and went from plant to plant to plant, typically around the state of Wisconsin. But every 2 to 3 years, my family moved to a different city. That meant finding a new community of people, being the outsider, always being the outsider, and always having to make new friends in places where people already knew each other, and like trying to break into communities. And in high school, actually attended Heartland Arrowhead, so out in Lake Country, Wisconsin. Fantastic school, lots of people, lots of activities to get involved in. And I did, got involved in a lot of things, but I knew people, but I didn't know people. And there was people constantly around me. But it wasn't until really getting into the youth group that it became people that got to know me. And I knew that I was loved for who I was, and the person that brought me there. And it was welcoming. We also had a lot of fun. You know, I remember one Christmas we had a white elephant gift contest. and only in Wisconsin, I think. Really, really only in Wisconsin, maybe Montana. But somebody brought a frozen dead deer leg as their white elephant gift. A deer leg, real deer, like it had been shot from the, just probably a couple weeks before. That was their white elephant gift. That one to this day, I mean, 2 decades plus later, I will never forget that, like, white elephant gift party. But that was in the youth group. Like, that was it was a place that, yes, we got to know each other, but we also had fun. And it really laid a foundation that I wanted to go to school or wanted to go to church. I remember just getting my license and asking my mom, "Hey mom, can I drive to church?" And she was like, "Okay." Up until that point, I was really good in catechism. So I went to all my catechism classes. I went to all my classes, but I wasn't one of those people that like said, "Hey, can I go to another time when I don't have to for something I'm in?" I remember, those slightly awkward conversations with my mom going, "Yeah, I want to go. Can I have the keys to attend this weekend?" And because I wanted to learn more. I wanted to see what was happening in this place where people just loved each other.
And I think of the person who invited you, how special they are. Not everybody can do that in high school. It can be important to them. It takes something to just invite someone else.
Right. She then went on to be a missionary for many, many, many years. And but to this day, we're still good friends. Still really good friends.
Let's get to forward a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get challenged, the greatest part of my faith to me is everybody's story is different,
Mm-hmm.
and yet it seems similar, if that makes any sense.
Yep. Yeah. So, I alluded to it when I was beginning, but really for me, one of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest hurdles to my life was I a faith-based person, Christian, was in Christian ministry, and I went through a divorce. And that rocked my world. It really rocked my world. I, from different things, the first morning that I went back to church, after we had started to share it, and I didn't know if I would be accepted back in the church or what people would think about it or how they would embrace me or would they embrace me. And all of those questions that come and just this, I had at that point, I had for 7 years at that point, started and led an organization for police families that was a faith-based organization, and wondering, much of my identity also tied up in that, like what's next? What's going to go on? Like, if I'm not going to be a police wife, then I probably shouldn't lead a police families organization, even though I started it. And so in a very short amount of time, my career and my family, and I didn't know where I would live, and I didn't know where my income was going to come in. And I was like, okay, God, like I followed you, like I'm doing what I thought I was supposed to do. And in divorce, there's never an innocent party in there, but it wasn't expected at that time. I wasn't shocked to know that my marriage was having problems. Probably so much of the reason that I poured myself into a police families organization, because I wanted to find a solution to the problems I had. And yet, like, your faith is just torn when all of a sudden everything that you were expecting your life trajectory to go on just falls out from underneath you, and you just wonder what was going on. And during that time, I ended up journaling a lot, and a lot about my struggles, a lot about what was happening and what I wanted and what I hoped for, and spent a lot of time in the Psalms, realizing, like, guess what? A lot of these Psalms were written because people were going through really hard times. David wrote a lot of those Psalms out of torment and pain, and questioning his belief and wondering if this was really like God, really? Like I've given a lot for you, and this is like I'm treated in this way, like I don't get it. And so just spent a lot of time in scripture, in with friends, and just said, I don't want this to define who I'm going to become after this is all done. It's going to be painful. Spent months and months, not functioning very well, really just not functioning well. But I knew when I came out of it that I wanted hope for myself. And then also to share maybe some of those lessons I learned with others.
This is probably my favorite part, because when people are open as to God, and you were, I always want to ask, so how did he answer you? How did he answer you and give you a peace of mind, which I believe is one of his all-time great strengths, and he has many, but that's what I'm always curious. So take it away.
So, he did that on multiple levels, which I'm just so incredibly grateful for. On one level was the practical. I was going to become a single mom and had no income. And at that point, I had a master's degree in Christian studies. I had started and founded an organization that I led for 7 years, but I didn't have an income, and that is a really scary place to be when you want to provide. I want to provide for my kids. I want to, make sure that they don't lack of things, and so I remember applying, and I actually have an Excel file. I applied for 93 jobs in the course of the many months. And I thought I knew what I wanted to do, but I was open to a lot of stuff. I'd like to keep a roof over my head. And so just went through and honestly wasn't getting a whole lot of interviews at first, applying for things and just not hearing back. And I personally, in my finances, I knew that July 1st was going to be a huge shift in my finances. And up until July 1st of that year, I would apply for just about anything. Or I wouldn't. I wanted to only apply for the jobs I wanted. But after July 1st, I'd apply for everything. I'll be a waitress. I'll watch your kids. I'll do anything to do that. And June 1st rolls around, and I had no good leads. I'm like, this isn't looking good. And the month went on, and all of a sudden, after months of having 1 or 2 interviews, 4 interviews got set up. 3 of those went on to a second interview. And one night I was actually visiting my grandparents in New York, not far away from where Tom is right now. And I was in the middle of the mountains, 0 cell reception, very, very little cell reception. So all of a sudden my phone dings, I have a message, I listen to it, and it's an offer from one. While I'm listening to the message, I got another phone call with an offer from the other one. And the one that called in and that broke into me listening to the other messages and ended up being the job that I took. And they said, we know that this is really fast timing, but our interim executive director, he's leaving for vacation on July 1st. And so could you be here in less than a week and start working? And I just started sobbing. Because truthfully, if I didn't have a job on July 1st, but I knew I was starting August 1st or September 1st, I would have been okay. But the fact of that faithfulness for months and months, July 1st was this date. And it was just this confirmation to say, okay, God, you're in control here right now. You're working things out that I can't even imagine. And there's nothing I could have done about that at that moment. And it was so unrealistic for them to ask for this position to start in that time frame. but the fact that I was available and could start on that day, it just was one of those confirmations from God to say, yep, got you. And I've also asked God other things, and they haven't always come down to the day that I asked, but by any means. But that was one of those, and that bridged both my personal life, but then also the professional, and saying, here's a position for you. It may not be the highest paying job, may not be the thing, but it's this place that I want you to be. And I did for the next 6.5 years. Got to serve in a faith-friendly organization that was surrounded by people that loved God, and that we got to serve together. And I learned so much about service in those years, about how to live faith out in community that was incredibly diverse, and where people, yes, they might have tangible needs, but we realized that we all had needs. That place was a place of my healing. I was the director of a food pantry network in Milwaukee, and every day would give people food, but how many times people would bring me flowers because they knew I was having a bad day. Or they walked along my pain while I walked along theirs. And it was just a beautiful community to be in.
I wanted to back up because I'm always curious if we're at some point you're going, let's go, God, come on, let's go. And then when it happens, you're, all right, yep, now you're cooking. Now, I don't know from the day to day, I'm always curious about that as well, if others would be the way I was.
Yeah, I don't know too. I think I'm curious about that. Just like you're curious about it.
I mean, did you have faith all the time, or were there times you're saying, God, come on, let's get things going here. Some people never waver, even if it was July 1st or after July 1st.
Oh,
some people do.
I wavered. I wavered. I ended up in the midst of this. I did. A lot of people are asking me about my journey because I wavered publicly. I didn't waver only in my own home, in my own soul. But I, as a leader, when I went through my divorce, I was the leader of an organization with 400 members. And I had to publicly share that I was leaving and why I was leaving. And so, in my life, it felt like a big audience. I know in the whole scope of the world, it really wasn't, but for myself. And I just, I went actually back to 1 Corinthians 13, and Ben's like, okay, Lord, you say like faith, hope, and love. Like, how does that happen when the world is not as it should be? Like, the world is not as it should be right now. How can I stick it? And I did waver. I did wonder. I did question my faith. And I questioned them publicly, and I questioned them even more privately about what was happening. And yeah, got a job that didn't resolve all of my issues and all of the things that were going on. It was just one small piece of remembering it could be that there was some faith in this. And there was, there could be some redemption in a difficult place.
Tommy, take it away.
She's amazing, isn't she, buddy?
Yes.
Catherine, so now you write a book,
Mm-hmm.
Faith, Hope, and Love. And out of your pain, you find healing, and you're hoping, praying to find healing for others, or that others might find healing through this wonderful work.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about reconciling faith in the hard times, and hope when there doesn't seem to be any, and yet finding love when maybe you're upset and you want the heck with it. No, God, I'm taking a time out from you. Would you just share that? Because I think people within the sound of your voice, and hopefully at some point within this, looking at your book, will be blessed by it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I actually, I'm grounded in other people. So yes, this manifested itself in sharing it with others. But one of my favorite authors is Henry Nouwen. I think that he had just blessing. His words were just a blessing. And he had one thing, and I actually had it with me because I was like, it's core. It's so core. It's about, and I won't read the whole thing. It's only a page, but it says, do not hesitate to love and to love deeply. You might be afraid of the pain that deep love can cause. When those you love deeply reject you, leave you, or die, your heart will be broken. But that should not hold you back from loving deeply. The pain that comes from deep love makes your love ever more fruitful. It is like a plow that breaks the ground to allow the seed to take root and grow into a strong plant. Every time you experience the pain of rejection, absence, or death, you are faced with a choice. You can become bitter and decide not to love again, or you can stand straight in your pain and let the soil on which you stand become richer or more able to give life to new seeds. And it goes on. This book, The Inner Voice of Love by Henry Nouwen. It really, besides my Bible, like, I just stayed in it to say, in this deep pain. And it reminded me, and actually one of the reasons I started Shielded Hearts was a time that I had heard Jill Briscoe speak. And she said something that has stayed with me probably now 2 decades. And she said, your greatest missions field is between your own 2 feet. So when I started Shielded Hearts, an organization for police families, it's because I saw the pain that police families experienced, and I wanted to do something about it. So that same thing then happened when I went through my divorce, and I said, okay, this is the pain between my own 2 feet. Like, what can I do about it? And and that it came into writing a book about faith, hope, and love, those things that I struggled with and went through, and to say, okay, where is this missions field? Where is this place that I am? And a visual image that I love to use, and it's not, this is a beautiful club. My brother-in-law actually is a potter and created it, but I think about it if it was broken, and I've actually broken a few of his mugs, very, very sadly broken these beautiful creations. And it's in the brokenness, we asked him, and we look at in Japan how they have these beautiful pieces, these pottery pieces that have gold in it. And I know I'll butcher how it's pronounced, but I think it's kintsugi, where it's this bringing beauty from brokenness. And that has been such a trait, and that has interwoven through things, is that, can there be beauty come? We've all been we have all been broken. Sometimes it's in our careers, sometimes it's in our families, but we've all experienced pain. And yet, if we go through the hard work, and it is hard work to journey through pain and come out healed on the other side. And healing doesn't mean that it's perfect. It doesn't mean it comes back to the same place. But through that, and in my life, unfortunately, and I will say unfortunately, done many of these journeys publicly, at the end of it, you have this like beautiful piece that you then can serve others with. You can say, hey, drink from this cup that was born out of pain. But it's something that you're able to share with others, and that hopefully that they can, not to say they're not going to go through their own pain journey, but they know that they're not alone. They're not alone in their faith journey. They're not alone in this journey that they walk through. And that's been my personal, my professional. I've been really blessed that I have been able to, not always the thing, I've never been food insecure in my life, and yet spent 6 years in that space. But I knew what pain was, and I knew what it was to journey. And while our pains might have been different, we could walk life together, even in a circumstance that I hadn't personally experienced. But many other things I have, been blessed to bring a new organization, a new program out of something that I experienced. And I didn't want others to have to go at least with the same amount of pain, or maybe can I like shave a few things off of that painful journey for them? I don't know if I ever could, but that was my hope.
Homer's got another question, I guarantee you. Come on, buddy.
All right. Well, you always say I have a t-shirt for everyone. Well, I do for Catherine, because I'm going to remember I'm grounded in others. You said that. I hope I heard it properly. They tell me I listen differently. Explain.
Well, I don't remember exactly saying that, but I might have. It really goes to some things that are deep in my philosophy. I actually just finished my doctoral research, and this grounded in, what did you say? I said grounded in.
I'm grounded in others. Now I'm worried. Tommy,
right.
Did you hear her say that, or
grounded in others? No, it actually sounds like something I would say.
That's who she is anyway, Homer, whether she said it or not, but I think she is.
Right. So my research a lot was saying, like, what are the things, and this was specifically in nonprofit staff and volunteers, what can they do that's beyond transactions? Because we have spent a lot of money on trying to fix people's problems. And we have a lot of things that are done in assembly line fashion of like, here, even in a food pantry, it could be that way. You need food, I have food, I can just give it to you. But does that really solve anything? Does that ground us in others? No, it really doesn't. And so I got to explore the concept of like transformational relationships. Many of us are familiar with transformational leadership, but that's often thought about like the people that are in charge of things, like how do they treat people? How do they treat the people that are working for them or that are with them? But I said, this is more grounded. This is more, and I will probably use this quote now, grounded with others, that it's, what is that others? What does that mean? And I think it's really meant of this transformational relationships with this, which is, yes, it's our individual, the things that we do. Are we available to people? Do we open ourselves up to authenticity? Are we transparent in our weaknesses? Are we open and available to others, and allow them to come as who they are? Do we set a nonprofit up in a way that their service model wants relationships, wants to be with others? And do we set in, even into the environment we create, do we create a welcoming environment that is filled with dignity and respect, and that you come through that? And I think all of these things, I mean, we could have another hour or half an hour on any of those subjects, but it's saying like, are we willing to walk with others in relationship? And that's in a professional setting. But it really comes down to the same thing. Like we're asked for, love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. So sometimes your neighbor is your physical neighbor. I actually do try to get to know my physical neighbors. And I'm maybe not always great at it, but try to be intentional and try to do that. But we also have other neighbors. We have neighbors that are at our gym. We have neighbors that are at our workplaces. We have neighbors, I would even say our family, we thinking about our family and our extended family. And are we with them? Do we live life with them in the good and the bad and the beautiful and the ugly?
Thanks, Dr. Pederson.
Exactly. Catherine, God brought you a wonderful man in Eric, and he brought him an amazing lady in you. Would you talk about the kinds of things you're doing, big picture? I remember at one point, I think you shared that you were thinking of being missionaries. I think you're missionaries every day. But just talk about that, please, as it relates to your faith and your experiences, because I've sensed through your struggle and the suffering, so much humility, surrender, trust, and so I'm kind of all over the board here. But
Yeah.
give people a big picture, if you will, as to where you are now and where you would like to be in service of the Lord you love dear.
Yeah, no, those are good questions, and honestly, questions I continually explore. But yeah, one of the redemption is I have been blessed to be remarried, and man that has served the church for 20 years now. He serves the church through IT, so he loves people through IT. You know, this whole thing, like, what does a missionary look like? A missionary isn't always, just somebody who preaches the word of God. It's using a skill set that you have in service to other people. I mean, that's really what a missionary should be. And that means, just like that quote by Joe Briscoe, all of us are missionaries in one way or another. I mean, we don't raise support. We may not go to a different country, although I have had the opportunity to do that too. It is this, it's who we are. And so you asked that, I have, over the years, I've had a lot of experience with small to medium-sized nonprofits. That's where I've spent my whole career. And so one of those things back between my own 2 feet was saying, I like that size nonprofit. I like the fact that size nonprofit is typically closest to the ground. If they haven't experienced the pain personally, they know somebody who has. It's filled with people who are passionate and visionary, and they want to change the world. And I thought, like, that's really cool. So how can I support them? And so what I did is, this is a whole other faith conversation we could get into, but right before COVID hit, March 1st last year, I started a consulting practice called Loving Venti. And our focus is to bring or to fill organizational cracks so that nonprofits can serve to their fullest capacity. And for me, it's saying, okay, I could do this. I could lead another nonprofit, and maybe at some point I will. But for right now, it's saying, I learned a few things over the last 16 years of being executive director of 3 different nonprofits. And maybe, just maybe, I can share that experience with others. And so who starts a business on March 1st, right before a pandemic hit? Me. Looking back, yeah, July 1st, we have dates here. July 1st, that was destined into something that I knew I was supposed to be in. March 1st, I questioned a lot, God. Are you sure about this date?
Now you're
really
talking
sure?
Homer's language, Kathy.
Right. Are you really sure about this? But yeah, I mean, now over the last 15, 16 months, just seeing that absolutely getting to serve and coach and consult with nonprofit leaders, mostly here in the Milwaukee and Wisconsin area, and help them do their job better. Be a sounding place for them, be a place where, being a leader is lonely. It's really hard to be in it. I mean, going back to the grounding for others, you're grounded, but so many people rely on you. Where does that person go when they have difficulties? And so just been blessed that I've been able to walk with others in their pain, help fill some of their organizational cracks, bring a team of people around me, because one, I've never been able to do anything good in my life by myself. I don't think we're ever meant to. And so bring other experts along to say, how can we support these people doing really, really good work so that they can go further in what they do.
This has been amazing. And so we all thank you, My Faith, and we will have another one. I guess this is just a personal note. How close are you to being doctor?
I became doctor in May. So
congratulations.
Yep. So I'm 1 month fresh into this.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to people enjoying your story as Brent puts it up. And for Tommy Pippins, I call him Tommy. This is Homer, My Faith. And Dr. Catherine Draeger Pederson. I hope that's close enough.
Close enough.
I look forward to maybe round 2, and this has been a treat for all of us. Thank you.
Well, and thank you for having me today. This has been wonderful to be in a conversation about things I'm obviously passionate about.
My Faith with Homer and Pip.